Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our little chit chat. Today, we're talking about something that many Vincentians have been whispering about for years, but very few people want to say this out loudly. Today, we're talking about Kingstown, our capital city, which is considered to be the heart of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You know, recently, even the Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Godwin Friday, acknowledged something that many of us already know. He said that Kingstown needs reimagining. And honestly, I think that he is quite right. Because if we're going to be truthful with ourselves, the capital is struggling. It's not dead, but it's definitely struggling. Now, before anybody starts shouting politics in the comments, let me make something clear. This conversation is not about ULP or NDP. This is about a better work in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because whether you are supporting a party whose color is red, yellow, green, blue, or purple, when you walk through Kingstown, we are all seeing the same things and we are all smelling the same things too. So there are a few things that we are gonna point out today. And with pointing out issues, we should also point out solutions as well. So we're gonna look at both things. So let me say something that some people might not expect. There is absolutely nothing wrong with vending in the capital city. Street vending existed and still exists in every country in the world. It exists in New York, in London, Brazil, India. For those persons who have traveled, you know what I'm talking about. Street economies are normal. People hustling to survive is very much normal. In fact, vending in the Caribbean is part of Caribbean culture, if you want to put it that way. So, this is not an attack on vendors, but here is where the real conversation starts. Vending cannot be disorderly because when there are no proper rules, the entire city starts to look like chaos, you know? And sometimes that's exactly what Kingstown looks like. We need to look at the aspect of cleanliness and food safety. Sometimes when you walk through the city and you see fish, especially sitting out on tables on the street, you don't know how long it's been there. It could be hours in the heat, sun blazing, and you're just standing there wondering how long that fish has been there. Who is checking that? Where is the sanitation oversight? Because food vending in the capital city must come with very serious hygiene standards. And let's go even further. Sanitation workers should not have to be cleaning up after vendors. Vendors should be packing up their own garbage, disposing of it, and go home. You know? So, in my opinion, it's unacceptable. When you finish selling for the day, what is so hard about throwing away your garbage? Why must the city workers come behind you cleaning up after your waste, plastic bags? I mean, that's not fair to them. And I don't think that is fair to the city either. And for those of you, if you spend enough time in certain areas of Kingstown, if if you spend enough if you spend enough time in certain areas of Kingstown, and I'm not talking about the entire city, but certain areas, you will see something else. You you will see some type of rat, and I'm not talking about little rats, eh? Some of these look like mangoes cousins running between the drains, even sometimes in broad daylight. And that in itself is a serious sanitation warning, because when rodents get so comfortable in a city, it means that something is wrong with waste management and hygiene practices. And let's be honest, some food establishments, remember, it's not everybody doing it. But there are some food establishments in the capital city that seriously need to step up their sanitation practices, because the reputation of the capital city affects the entire country. And then there's something else that many people notice in certain areas of Kingston. Remember, I'm not talking about the entire area, but in certain area of Kingston, that hot smell of urine, it hits you when you're walking down the street, and suddenly it hits you like a wall. Bam. That is not something a capital city should be known for. That could mean, it could mean that there are not enough proper facilities. It could also mean that there are some people who have stopped completely respecting the city. So let me say something that, some people might be uncomfortable with it. What I'm talking about is very much debatable. So I'm just giving you my take and my observation. You can tell me yours. But the capital city is supposed to represent the pride of a nation. It's almost like the front door of the country. It's the first thing that visitors see when they arrive from cruise ships, and also from the Grenadine Islands. But when people when people walk through Kingstown and they see that high level of congestion, garbage in some areas, that hot smell of urine that hits you sometimes, what message are we really sending about ourselves as a country? Because whether we like it or not, the capital city is a reflection of national pride. And if the capital is neglected, the entire country starts to look a little bit neglected too. Another thing that we have to mention is about congestion, because anybody who drives through Kingstown knows this one. Traffic everywhere, vehicles packed into every available space. And if you notice something interesting, when vendors were previously removed from the streets of Kingstown, do you know what replaced them? Do you know what replaced the vendors when they took them off the streets previously? Cars, vehicles took over the streets of Kingstown. So the problem wasn't necessarily vending. The problem is how the city is designed and managed. Kingstown Kingstown was never designed for the number of vehicles that we have today. The streets, the streets at that time was built for a much smaller population and far fewer cars than what we have right now. So now that we have a city, now what we have is a city trying to function in a system that was never designed for modern traffic. That means that at some point, the country is going to have to ask, a serious question. Do we keep forcing more vehicles into the capital, or do we start redesigning the city with better public transport, pedestrian areas, and limited vehicle zones? Because right now, the city is choking on traffic. And another thing that we must look at is that everything, almost everything, is centered around Kingstown. Most banks, major business offices, government services, hospitals, important transactions, they almost all of it is centered around Kingston. So what happens is that if somebody is living in Georgetown, Chateaubelair, Barley, and they need to do some very simple things like handling certain kind of paperwork, they have to leave their town and travel all the way to Kingstown. And remember, on mainland St. Vincent, there are six main towns. I'm not counting in the Grenadines. I'm talking about on mainland St. Vincent. So, why is it that almost everything is concentrated in one place? And that is one of the main reasons why the capital city is under so much pressure right now. And even farmers are feeling it. Imagine this. For those of you that know Saint Vincent, imagine a farmer from North Leeward. If he needs certain agricultural supplies or assistance on his farm, the farmer from North Leeward is being directed all the way to Dunbarton, meaning that he has to pass through Kingstown and find his way all the way to Dunbarton to get his supplies. And that in itself, it makes no sense because it because development should not mean forcing everybody to come to the capital city for small things. That is why sometimes I say the country, we have the unction but not the function. We have a lot of brilliant minds in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. The ideas are there, the potential is there, but the system doesn't always work the way that it should. And some people might bite me for saying this, but too many people in our country are studying political party first instead of national progress. My party this, my party that, and friends in certain positions allowing one to break the law while another person gets punished for the very same thing that they allowed their friends to get away with. That kind of thinking does not build a nation. It holds back and stagnates the country. But if we can knock heads together, if we can put aside the tribal politics and start focusing on building a better St. Vincent and the Grenadines, then we can honestly say all is not lost. You know? Another thing that we need to look at with our capital city is that the city have slowly turned into a concrete jungle. And remember, me come talk politics. We are talking about trying to have a better, proper functioning country. Kingston is slowly turning into a concrete jungle. Trees, green space, nature. Look around Kingston carefully. Over 90% of the capital is now concrete. Concrete buildings, concrete sidewalk, concrete everywhere. Meanwhile, trees are being cut down across the country at a very alarming rate. And then people would turn around and wonder, but why is it so hot? Why is it um why is it that rainfall patterns are changing? We CWSA, the water company, if you notice how low the some of the reservoirs are, nature doesn't just magically cooperate when we destroy green spaces. And cities need trees, cities need parks, cities need breathing spaces. And when you look around Kingstown, we are very much lacking in that. Where do people even relax? Let me ask a simple question. Where in Kingstown can people relax for free? Think about it. Like, really, think about it. The only place right now, the only green place right now that people go to in Kingstown is up at the Grenadines Wharf. The only other major green space is up at the Botanical Garden, but you have to pay to enter the gardens, as you know. So imagine this, a capital city where there are almost no free green spaces for people to sit, breathe, and just relax. That in itself, that is a very serious urban planning issue. So when when the prime minister himself even comes out and say that Kingston needs reimagining, he has a point. The man has a real point. But what is it exactly that reimagining Kingston really mean? If we are really serious about reimagining Kingston, then the conversation must go deeper than politics. We we have to ask real questions, hard questions. For example, should should vending be reorganized into cleaner, properly structured market zones? Should and For those of you that remember, the vegetable market was built in the this I would say in the heart or almost the belly of Kingston. Should parts of it be demolished and turned into green public space? What are your solutions? There should be, because in pointing out issues, we also have to think about solutions. One thing is for sure, there needs to be some sort of drive where trees can be planted across the capital city. There should be much stricter sanitation rules for vendors and restaurants across Kingston. There should be limits on the number of vehicles entering the city. And I know that some people might want to give me some licks for that, but also consider the growing number of obese people that we have in our country. A little walking wouldn't kill anyone. But at the end of the day, reimagining a city is not just about buildings, it's about how people live and move inside of that city. And hey, let me say something else before I go on. We we have a tendency of blaming the government for everything. People, be real. We cannot blame everything on the government. I'm gonna repeat that again. As citizens of any nation across the world, you cannot blame the government for everything. Some of this is also about how we treat our own country. because a cleaner, better organized capital city also requires citizens who respect the space that they are using. If people litter, if vendors leave their garbage behind, if business places ignore sanitation rules, if there are no green spaces, then no amount of government planning will fix the problem. A better Kingstown requires better systems and better habits, not only from the government, but also from each and every one of us as citizens of the country. So let me say this: Kingstown is not a lost cause. It's far from it. Kingstown is actually it's one of the most beautiful natural harbor cities in the Caribbean. But beauty alone is not enough. The city, the city has to evolve. The city must be able to adapt. The the city must be planned properly. So maybe the Prime Minister is right about one thing. Kingstown does need reimagining. But the real question here today is, what would you change about Kingstown? Because the future of the capital city does not, it, the future of the city should not just be decided in government offices. It should be it should be shaped by the people who walk those very streets every day. So I'm gonna stay here for today. You can share what you think in the comment section, but I'm gonna leave by asking you this question. If you had the power to redesign Kingston tomorrow, what is the first thing that you would change? What I'm saying is debatable. Remember, I'm just sharing my 2 cents. Thank you all for listening. You can let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll catch you all another time. Thank you for listening in today. Bye bye.